It's listen, I didn't hate this movie. I don't know that I'd watch it again. I feel like it's extremely overrated and overhyped, and it's particularly because it's a couple of movies kind of thrown together, and it feels like I'm watching different things that don't flow evenly enough for me.
And the Oscar goes to Parasite.
상상도 해본 적이 없는 일이 실제로 벌어지니까 일단 너무 기쁘고 기쁩니다. 예.
We never imagined this to ever happen. We are so happy. I feel like a very opportune moment in history is happening right now.
I'd like to thank everybody who's been supporting Parasite and who's been working with Parasite. I really want to thank our Korean film audience, our moviegoers, who's been really supporting all our movies.
All right, folks, welcome. Another first-time watch party, if you will. The first time I've seen Parasite. That's right. Gourd is in the house. We're going to talk about the first time watching sort of review reaction, and I've only watched this the one time. I didn't have a chance to even watch it again if I wanted to. Gourd, thanks for doing this. Recommending this one because it was sort of like put on the shelf for me. It was one that I wasn't really going to watch, and thanks to you, I gave it a go.
All right, nice. Yeah, this was actually only my second time watching it. The first time was around the time it first came out, but it was fun to revisit. It's a really interesting movie, especially the second time around. I actually had probably a little bit better experience the second time.
I feel like that would probably be the case in some ways, and I will definitely say, folks, the film. Let me give you my synopsis. Gourd can add or delete. I had heard all sorts of wrong things about this movie. Just so we're completely clear, this is about a Korean family, a husband and a wife. Their two young adult children, very impoverished, really suffering their way through life, and then they find a way to sort of defraud and then become basically con artists of an uber wealthy family. And they each four end up with what appear to be decent paying, if not well-paying jobs. And they're all basically pretending to be something that they're not, or they have dispatched someone to get those jobs. And then, of course, the latter half of the film, the story turns sideways with some twists and turns. And then, of course, what the fate will yield for everything. And there's some general social commentary, some general sort of like class commentary, those type of things is pretty much what the premise of the film was. And it was an Oscar award-winning film. I do say that I enjoyed the director's work on Snowpiercer. I'm not totally up to date. I didn't see his latest film, which is called Mickey 17, I believe. I haven't seen that. I've heard mixed things on that as well. And I don't think I've seen the biggest one on here, I think, for me to watch would probably be The Host. That's the one that I've always heard a lot of great things about and we need to go see. But I wouldn't be opposed to watching some of his other work. He crafts, I think, a very he's a good craftsman. He crafted a good film. It looks good. He has some different ideas that he's trying to convey. I think there's some really beautiful shots, and then there's some elements that we can kind of get into the pros and cons otherwise. So what do you think, Gourd? My analysis was not what I was told. I was like, wait, I heard all sorts of things on this movie.
I'm a little curious, I guess, as we discuss what you did here, because I remember, this came out in 2019, and like a lot of people when I was going into this the first time were talking a ton about the whole class warfare theme, and really like acting as though it was bending severely, one way to the aisle, to where I didn't really want to watch the movie. But because I heard it was so good, and because I too had seen Snowpiercer and really liked it, funny thing, I actually, like, the first time I watched The Host, I didn't care for it. So I'd be curious about revisiting that, because I'm curious if that hit me wrong on the first time. Right. I've actually heard Memories of Murder, though, is his best movie. At least from some people I know, like Vex, I know that's one of her favorite movies, period. But I've heard a lot of people say Memories of Murder is his best. But
okay.
I similarly had heard a lot of things in it. I felt like it colored my first view a little bit, but even though it did a little bit the first time, I still liked it the first time. I was just so hyper focused on that one element of class warfare that it was kind of, hard to be objective at all watching it. But watching it this next time, I was like, I feel like this movie's probably a bit more balanced than people gave it credit for. I mean, I can't speak to the intention of the director, but I think the movie, as far as like the class warfare thing, I consider that a little bit more of a subtle element. I think this is much more of a character driven story, and a really interesting one. I think the characters are kind of the strong suit of the film.
Yeah, I would say that I really enjoyed the first act of the film a lot, the introduction, and I wouldn't say class warfare, which I think is very interesting too, because people definitely used a lot of that type of language with me as well. But I think it was more like just trying to shine a light on the differences of classes and class struggle.
Hmm.
So, and we'll get to that later in the film, but early on, just the fact that they live a life that is even sort of like beneath, our ghetto standards in a lot of ways. Like, it's very, very impoverished situations. Like,
Hmm.
it's not something that is even sort of like easy to relate to. So one member of the family gets a job folding these boxes for this small independent pizza company, and they're going, each family member is going to fold boxes, so they sell them back. Now, one quarter of the boxes are not folded right. There's a flap that's out, and clearly everyone kind of casually looks at the dad like he just doesn't care. And then there's also this moment in the movie which they don't really do anything with, which was the fact that it's so bad there that they have bugs, and they were like, leave the windows open. They're the county. I don't know the terms there, but it would be like the county pesticide company is coming by spraying for insects. They say leave the windows open, let all this poison in, free pest control. I was expecting something to turn sideways with the cardboard boxes, like the poison would be on the boxes, because it definitely was leaning into being a very dark and edgy comedy in that first few elements, and it didn't really kind of go anywhere. But I do say I enjoy those setups and getting to know all of the different family structure and characters and that kind of stuff in this very first few moments.
Yeah, I think that if I think that what they were going for with the fumigation part there is that's contributes to the smell that that they have on them that's most prominent with him. Like I think there's several allusions to not just the fact that they carry this smell with them that people that aren't rich seem to carry. I think the way the rich couple puts it is people on the subway have this very distinct smell about them, and the
Hmm.
father, who's the oldest, uh, carries it the most because he's probably he's lived the longest and he's probably been poor his entire life. I think that's the point of the fumigation scene. That's why, like, I mean, he's the one person in the family who just kind of takes it. And he's a little bit more used to it. They're all like, shut the window, shut the window. But he's more just taking it in because it's
Yeah,
just like, well, this is just what you do to survive. It's free fumigation.
yeah, they they're here trying to figure out how, because I guess the person that they're hijacking their Wi-Fi off of's changed their passwords, so now they're here and trying to stand up here over by the window. You can get a code. They can check Messenger about the jobs. Just all of these different. So this sort of, like I said, dark, edgy comedy stuff in the very first wave is kind of was my favorite part. I really enjoyed all of this. This was really great to build upon,
Hmm.
and the tone of the film, I think, is probably one of my issues. It isn't even. Like, I don't totally know how to characterize this film in a lot of ways, because it does have moments that kind of dip into a lot of different elements that it's threaded together well. I'm not trying to say it takes away from anything. And again, I said it's a well-crafted film. It's just odd that he has some sort of like extreme measures to kind of pull all of this off, because immediately after this is where we have like a school friend who approaches the son, and the son is going to be offered, hey, listen, I have to go away. Ki-woo, I think I trust you. They have this uber wealthy family has this daughter. She needs tutoring. You'd be great. Why don't you do this? Just forge a few documents and you can get the gig. And you're like, okay. I mean, this seems like hijinks that would definitely play out well. It seems like hijinks that I can see happening.
Hmm.
I don't see. Let me see if I can. I don't see a photo that is of the shot I was hoping for, where they go to
Mhm.
like an internet cafe where she basically forges his documents for him.
Yeah.
This is a little bit later in the film, but there she is. There's the daughter. And she is just brilliant in that scene.
포토샵 같은 것도 잘하고. 이야, 넌 이 좋은 실력으로 왜 미대는 맨날 떨어지냐?
아이씨 죽을래.
언니, 이거 금연인데요?
예. 나 그거 좀 줘.
She has that cliche. Is this in a lot of other Korean movies that you've seen, Gord? Because I know it's in like Kung Fu Hustle and stuff, where a Korean woman will be smoking a cigarette and they'll have like that 2-inch ash hanging off of it.
It does kind of seem like that. It's something I kind of want to keep an eye on in certain movies, particularly ones with a more comedic bend.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is something I've seen a couple of times, and
Yeah.
I am wondering if that's just something they like to do. Is this is how you show a really hyper focused Korean woman in her element? But it's I ain't gonna lie. There's a bit of a personal distraction watching her in these scenes because I'm not even joking. She looks like the Korean version of one of my sisters. I mean, dead on. Um,
Wow. Okay.
she
Okay.
looks so much like one of my sisters. It's funny. But yeah, I mean, like, I tend to agree. I think that like when you go into the second I it's not the second act, it's really the third act, but you could almost argue this feels like two movies in one.
This movie
Um,
has almost kind of like 5 acts. It has different
yeah.
rises and falls, and and he's stacking. He's not doing a traditional 3-act movie for sure. He's got
Yeah.
multiple things that are stacking. It's definitely a more Tarantino approach than would be
Mhm.
a typical 3-act structure. So yeah,
It
I
just
totally get what you're saying.
when they introduce like kind of the movie's like biggest shift, like where the primary tension of the film gets worked in, it's a very dramatic shift, and I almost kind of wish they had moved that section like further into the movie that would like maybe that actually make up the full second half of it so you could let it breathe a little bit more, because it feels like we introduced that tension and then by I think it's by the next day it's resolved, and I was like I feel like they could have done even more with it uh to make the build up to what happens at the end not necessarily feel more earned, but just for that tension just to keep rising and rising. When you talk about Tarantino, one of the things he does really well is he knows how to let a scene like stretch and stretch and
Yep.
stretch until the tension reaches a breaking point. This one, when everything starts to get chaotic, it kind of feels a little bit more abrupt. Uh, and I will say, I do think that probably my biggest beef with the movie is that everyone in the family's skill set enables them to uh, get like it's a little convenient. They all have the skill set they have in order to make certain things happen the way they do. Particularly the sister, the fact that she can forge documents, and that when he thinks of her uh, to be the young boy's teacher and whatnot, that she's so effortlessly able to kind of BS her way into the home. It's like, oh, she just has this ability to be this good at it. I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, it's easy to move past because once you get there, it is really, really fun. Uh, it is really entertaining watching each of them interact, especially her. She's probably my favorite person to watch in the movie because she is so cool, and she takes her role in such a way that actually is kind of funny. I mean, and especially with it coming out in 2019, this whole idea of an art therapist, I just thought was hilarious.
Yes.
So I was like, it's such a made up and pretentious sounding position, but it fits that period so well. It's the kind of thing that we would be making fun of severely probably within 2 or 3 years of this coming out. To the point now where I wonder if anyone would even bother to take on a role like that. But I thought just art therapist, I was like, that's very 2019.
Yeah, everything about this, again, we're still very early on. The tutor, he takes, and I don't know what translates, so I'm assuming this is legitimate translation because it's almost the name of Kevin. You know what I mean? It's like they take on these ridiculous American names. She takes on
Yeah.
the name Jessica. It was like, what? And it was like, it's kind of fun. This all worked really well for me. Like I said, I'm very immersed into the layers upon layers of them sort of like getting their feet in the door with this group and then figuring out kind of what's next. And then, is it Ki-jung, right? Ki-jung?
Hmm.
Ki-jung
Yeah.
is mesmerizing. She's fantastic. She's just phenomenal. And you feel like, okay, she's kind of you feel like, okay, I felt like the whole film was going to be centered around there's it's kind of like this con artist family. They're hustlers. They're doing their thing. Mom and dad are content living in the ghetto, and these two kids maybe trying to find their way to kind of get to hustle their way out of it. You know what I mean? Don't totally know. I felt like the son was going to be the good-hearted between the two. This is the nature of where I'm at. I'm so naive with how this film's going to go. And where we kind of get weird is this next phase with the daughter. The daughter actually kind of like maliciously comes up with a scheme to
Hmm.
get rid of the maid, to get rid of the driver, to get rid of it's like, wow, that's dark. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. At first, you're like, "What is she doing?" Because he's.
Yeah.
You get the sense at first that okay, he's sort of hitting on her a little bit, and she's not reciprocating because she's protecting her identity. She doesn't want. They don't want them to know that they live in the slums, uh, because obviously that would clash with the idea of her being like an in-demand art therapist, and but then yeah, it gives her this idea of framing him. So yeah, she like because like, and you're wondering at first when you first see the scene, it's like, because she reaches up her skirt and starts pulling off her underwear. And you're like, what is she doing? And then she just leaves it there. And it's like, once she left it, I was like, okay, I think I get what she's going
Yeah.
for. Uh, but yeah, it's like basically they frame this young guy like and it's done in such a way as to where while the act is malicious, you get the sense that they're kind of the movie is kind of protecting them morally in a way. They're like, yeah, it's bad that they're doing this, but the guy he'll be able to get another job, and it's not like scandalous in the sense that this is horrible, horrible, wrong stuff. Like even the couple who hired him are like, look, just come up with an excuse to fire him. But it's like, he's got, if this is your personal life, that's your business. But you did it in my car, you crossed the line, so we don't want it on his record, but we'll just let him go. And I'm like, okay, the movie's running a little bit of protection for the family morally, because I think in reality, it's like, that's pretty messed up
Yeah.
that
I
you would do that.
I was having this was my first. I'm going to call it a yellow flag. Okay, hold on, wait, what? So the other thing too is this only works because the rich people have to be pretty dumb. So they're
Hmm.
being spoon fed some sort of loose details. She's acting kind of odd and aloof about it, and kind of just doing enough for them to just come to the right conclusion that something happened and it was in the back of the car and whatever. So
Yeah, and
it,
I honestly think it probably would have been more, because I tend to agree with you. It is such a loose thing, and the fact that it's the father who finds it that I think bugs me a little bit. Of that, wow, they came to that conclusion really quickly, and I feel like if you want to
mhm.
sell me on one of them coming to that conclusion, you've built up the wife as being kind of daffy. So I could maybe buy her into her finding it and her mind going wild, and then maybe then going to her husband saying, I found something that makes me think da 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 da, and he may be being, well, okay, maybe, but we'll do this about it. Uh, Whereas instead, the movie
It
has
would be
him
so
find
much
it, and
easier to come up with some other, yeah, some
yeah, it's
other.
like
This
it's
this
one
was this
of
yeah,
millions of possibilities. It seems that they
yeah,
come to this
yeah,
one conclusion.
and that sets up um that sets up the father now taking on the role of being a driver who's just gifted at being a driver. There's a line about, you corner so smoothly. His little coffee cup doesn't spill or anything, right? So um
I do like that. Like the one thing I do really like about the build up to him doing the driving is I like the fact that they took the time to show them go to a Mercedes dealer so he could familiarize himself with
yes,
the. I
okay,
was like, I
right.
love that little stuff. That's a good way of showing. Okay, this family is doing the legwork to sell the idea that he's good at, and I can I can believe that he's a good driver. That I don't find that difficult to believe, and there are flaws to his ability as well, because we have a couple of scenes where he gets distracted and whatnot, which would
Mhm.
be very unprofessional and whatnot. But I appreciated the fact that they showed them going to the dealer where he familiarized himself with the console and things like that. I was like, okay, these little things I really like, because it builds the character, it builds that they have the work ethic to, sell the lie. So
Yeah, this worked really well. Again, Mercedes set up the interview, who he is, what all that. So now I'm moving into okay, so they're really good at grifting and they're really good at trying to figure out how to appear to be better than they are. So that's where I was like really into giving them a little bit of grace too, with what you said earlier about maybe not having the perfect skill sets to align with the jobs they're going to take. It's like, okay, well, he's take a crash course at the Mercedes location to do their thing. They're going to do so. I was still pretty good here. What was interesting is how dark the sister gets with getting rid of the maid. And we're
yeah,
going to
they
now transition into something that gets very, very dark. And like, it was kind of like my first, oh, I don't like this part. And I don't mean it because of what they do. It's also like how their scheme has to work perfectly for a script. Like
right,
okay, now we're in Hollywood land. So
right.
what they do is they contrive a mechanism to shave from a peach because the housekeeper has extreme peach allergies, and they're going to expose her very slowly. And then they're going to have these different conversations, little nuances and stuff that kind of happen where they are going to play it up as though she has tuberculosis. And you're like,
Hmm.
okay, what? That's a very extreme sort of take on things, but okay, we're going to do that, are we? And I didn't have a problem even with these scenes like this and kind of like the general flow of it. What I had a problem with was the rehearse scene with the son. That makes sense. They were scripting out what he would say, his little speech about
Hmm.
tuberculosis.
Yeah.
He seemed like he would know exactly what they would say. It didn't. It just felt just like Hollywood script, world of conveniences, rather than the prep that we got from like the Mercedes part. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I almost felt like it's strange, because this is where I felt like the prep work was a little overdone, was because they cut back and forth between him kind of learning how to sell what he's going to say to her and him actually saying it. And I'm like, I feel like this is a little too much, because now, like you said, it feels a little bit more contrived, because if you're going to have a script like that, like you said, she's got to say the right things too, and you have no control over
Yeah,
what the wife of the house says. So I almost feel like it would be better. Like it kind of left me wondering. It's like, why would you? Do you really need to have anything here to sell that whole thing? I mean, look, we know your plan. We know what you're up to as far as trying to
hmm
make it look like the woman has tuberculosis. Then you just kind of say, "Look, this is what I saw. This is what I found," and you don't have to do much more explaining than that. It's like, "Look, this is what I found after she coughed." So it's like
yeah,
I feel like if it's far, and not only is it a little bit too coincidental as far as the back and forth, it's like I feel like if you all are the ones, if he's the one who's doing all the warning about tuberculosis and all that, it's like it would make me far too suspicious of him in the first place, that he has to
agreed.
be the one that sells this idea entirely. I feel like if the wife sees the housekeeper coughing and they do the hot sauce trick where it looks like blood, I feel like you've established already this family on a small detail will take precautions. So, with the underwear whole thing, and I was like, I feel like you kind of already established you don't need a long explanation. It's like you show her this and be like, oh my gosh, you could even just jump to the wife saying, what if she has like tuberculosis or something?
Right,
Um,
right. And
I don't feel
like I
like you have
said,
to
the
do that
line
much
was
legwork.
the line was where they're scripting. Do people still get that? And then the character actually says, Do people still get that?" And it was like too omniscient. It just didn't work. It was just too forced. And
Hmm.
all of this gets them all in the door, though. Everything on their scheme, all of the other things are working. They all four are now getting money from this family. Some are really doing well. I'm assuming the daughter is really doing the best because she has this sort of like art therapy scam going on where she's getting paid exorbitant amounts of money. Um, well, we come to a point where just a typical cliche, the family is going to leave. We're going to go away for the weekend kind of thing. And they're just going to go in and just basically be horrible humans. So now the film starts to change for me because I started to realize, okay, so the one problem I have with the class warfare or sort of like the societal commentary is it's letting them off the hook of the fact that they've given this opportunity, even if they've scanned themselves into this opportunity. They could have easily gotten out of the slums with the money that they've been earning, or at least have some sort of plan to get out with enough money saved or something. There's literally like one line about the boy going to college, but that's pretty much it. We just ignore the fact that there's any sort of like, let's take control of our own destiny here. Instead, we're just gonna
Yeah, you would think
drink and be
at some
slime balls.
point,
Yeah,
yeah, and they don't even have to like that. That was one question I had as it progressed. Like, you don't get a firm grasp of how much time passes, but you do get the sense that it's enough to where at least a few months have probably passed by. I would say also, I like, if I, as far as the whole everybody having the proper skill sets, the mother being brought in as the housekeeper was the one I probably had the biggest trouble with, because there's really nothing up to that point to suggest that she is a good housekeeper. Um,
correct.
you
Or
know,
a good cook. She doesn't know
yeah, it's
anything
like
about cooking. Yeah.
we have no indication that she has these skills at all. But yeah, there's that party that's wondering. It's like, okay, these all four of them are making money, and they, by their own admission, they're combining to make good money. So I was like, well, upgrade your living circumstances. You would think you'd upgrade your living circumstances, particularly if you're wanting to, mask the smell that you're all constantly dealing with, particularly the father. You wouldn't have to boil your clothes to clean them. You wouldn't have
Yep.
uh, the risk of certain things that happen not too long after this. It's like you would think they'd move to upgrade their situation, but they don't. And I was like, yeah, that is a little bit strange. Granted, I don't know if there's a big difference between how that's done in South Korea versus here, but I've never heard anything to the contrary. So yeah, that for me was a bit of a mental barrier.
And of course, the big cliche of, the family is going to come home early now, and let's race around and figure this out and all that. Okay, we're losing the script a little bit. It didn't feel like I'm in the same dark comedy that I started out with, and it starts to be the
Do we want
first.
to? Well, before that, I mean, do we bring up
Yeah.
what happens right before that?
Spoiler alerts and more spoiler alerts, folks. This is not going to be a spoiler-free conversation for the 2019 movie. So, if you don't want serious spoilers on how things twist and turn, just check back with this or whatever. Because it's just there's not a way to progress through how the events go from the four of them getting in the house in this point to what happens between like the rest of the film, and just know that's kind of where things change. And this is where communication about the film, I think, gets lost because the film kind of becomes something quite different, if you will.
Hmm.
So yeah, there we go. So all
It's
right.
yeah. So basically, the old housekeeper, who had the peach allergy, she comes over and she's out in the rain. She's asking to come in, saying she forgot something from right before she got let go, and they're all hiding except for the mother who's being housekeeper, and she lets her in and follows her downstairs where she goes in the basement, and her family's telling her, go follow her and see what she's doing, because she's basically, and when they go down to the bottom of the stair, they find that she's opened up this door to this secret bunker, which the movie
Yep.
suggests that a lot of rich folks have secret bunkers in their house, and that the current owners don't know about this one. And it turns out she has been housing her husband, who has been hiding from loan sharks for the past 4 years. And her initial request, because the housekeeper, the mother in this family, has followed her down, is that she would periodically feed him, maybe once a week, leave some food out for him, but don't tell anybody. And she's like, no, I'm not gonna, do this. And this is one area where, again, I feel like the way that a lot of the media covered this movie, acting like this was very firmly on the side of the family, I thought, no, I think the movie is more balanced than that, particularly because it shows that they're very hypocritical here, because she's asking her to keep this guy, keep their secret, and she's, ready to call the police and stuff, and you're just sitting there like, wow, you're all you're all scheming very similarly, and you're not willing to do the same for
Yeah.
them. I mean, that's a bit
You don't want
scummy.
to share the grift, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Like, why can't you? What? So she's obviously been keeping this secret. Yeah, I agree. This is where things started to turn really. First off, we had the red flag with how far they'll go, given the
Mhm.
peach allergy and all of that. And then it's like, wait, we have this lady who's keeping this husband and whatever. And then of course, it becomes like Disney hijinks for like the kids trip over themselves to come down the stairs and reveal it's them, and they
Yeah.
know the whole. It was just I
It's
don't
for
know,
me,
man.
yeah, it's probably like I like the shift in tone in the sense that I like that, you have this night where the family's reveling the most in the luxury, and this is where it all starts to go wrong. I'm fine with that. It's just the way it occurs feels like we haven't been building towards this, so it feels
No,
very abrupt. Like, okay, now we're
very
into a
abrupt.
second type of movie, and I feel like if I were to do a movie like this, I would keep the housekeeper's character in the movie, because I would like show her basically get let go, and then them telling her, look, we suspect that you're sick, you might have tuberculosis or something, and her wondering, it's like, why on earth did they think this about me? And she gets let go after all of these years, and she's the movie says she's been there for several families. Have her kind of be suspicious, like what's going on
Yeah,
here,
yeah,
and maybe just build towards her being the one who kind of discovers this family secret. uh I mean, granted, I understand you have to introduce the secret bunker thing for the ending, but the more I thought about it, the more I thought, the secret bunker thing, I get that thematically it's important, but I started to ask myself how necessary it was beyond the ending itself, the whole thing with her husband. But and I was like, okay, I guess you could work that in as far as like how the movie ends, other than like the whole chaotic scene. I know that her husband kind of starts that whole thing. I was like, I guess you kind of need it, but I feel like there's got to be a better way to introduce that into the movie, along with, I mean, even if like you have the show the housekeeper's motivation not just being investigating these people who took her job, but also she's desperate, like make it show that she's a little bit more desperate to try to get in there. She's like, oh, my husband's gonna starve to death. I've got to do this. I mean, you start to see
yeah,
that
yeah.
there's
That's
these
yeah. That to
ulterior
me is the better
motives.
angle. Yeah, the better angle
Yeah,
I think is making her try to sleuth out something's wrong because people think I have tuberculosis, but I got to get to my husband, and then having some hijinks to figure out how to get again, keeping with that dark comedy edge that was working so
yeah.
well.
Like maybe
And
you
then
could
you
start
have
by go ahead.
I was
I
just
was
going to
gonna.
say that you lean into what you were saying about like she's got to get to the bunker. Like they're going to throw her back out in
Mhm.
the rain. Go listen. You got to take it up with the parks. They're not even here. I don't know what they said, what they know. Just kind of play naive. But this woman, you got to get her out of the house. She could be onto us. And then she's not going to take that as a maybe she runs from them and gets to this bunker thing. Maybe it's not quite so elaborate to get in and out of. By the way, to make it easier for this to work. But that's basically instead, it becomes this Disney, everyone trips over themselves, eavesdropping. Now they're caught. Everyone has cell phones that work. And now they're being held. Here, keep your hands up. I have you hostage now. I'm going to tell your secrets. It's like, okay, it just, like you said,
Yeah,
it's not only, it's
it
the
feels,
tone. Everything was just jumbled here with all
yeah, it's
this.
very it's a bit sloppy. Like to me, it's like if you could show the housekeeper, maybe like you initially show her and you don't tell the viewer exactly why. It's like, okay, you see that she's very much trying to get back in the home, and we obviously would know after the fact that she'd be trying to get to her husband, but you show her trying to get back in the house. She's got to get to him, and in the process of trying to, day after day figure out ways to get back in, she maybe spots two of the family members together talking, and maybe that makes her suspicious, or maybe she sees them all together and she starts to realize, oh, this is an actual family, and that means they would have had to have schemed their way in, because I know they all came in individually under the guise of not being a family. So you could give her this way,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, that's my way back in. I can hold this against them, and maybe then like have her record it while they're not paying attention, and then she goes to one of them and says, okay,
I
I
don't even,
know what's going on with y'all,
I
I
don't
need to
even
get
think
back
we
to my
need to,
home.
I don't even know that we need to change that much of the script. I think we just need to change the hijinks. I think we just
Hmm.
need to change getting her to the bunker is what we needed to change. Like
Right.
her getting back in and sleuthing in, getting to that stairwell. So they're in there, they're fighting. She's not going to be allowed in. Something's not right with you people. Why are you acting like this? Like you're new
Hmm.
here. Why I've been here for 30 years. I know this place inside and out. And you're acting like, you know what? No, you need to leave the parks, blah, blah, blah. And maybe they get into a little scuffle and a little skirmish. And she races to this bookcase and she knows her secret passage, which again shouldn't have been so ridiculously hard to open. And then she slips down these stairs, and they fight over a cell phone because now they figure out the parks are being scammed too. And in that scuffle, then the lady's hurt. You know what I mean? It's like it's easy to just smooth out the dark comedy. Stay on task with the dark comedy part. Like stay on task with the hijinks to keep it that way and let it more slowly drift into the dark despair mode that he's trying to get to with his commentary. Like it's just it's abrupt with how this all changes so rapidly. So yeah. Because we go from all of that to the fact that because all this is happening in the rain. And again, the Park family left to go camping, which of course they can't go camping because now it's been raining. And actually, again, maybe this doesn't translate well for us because rainstorms there, easily can become like monsoons. So we know that, but that's not what the film kind of gets into. It just kind of says raining, and they're all just focusing on how to get out of the house and not get caught with the rainstorm and all of that. And
I would also say that one thing that does irk me in that whole sequence, because like I said, it's as cool as some of the things are, and like this the whole scene where they're like drinking the booze and having a good time. I actually really like all of that. It's just all of the chaos that gets the next part of the movie started is really messy. And one thing that really bugs me, because they don't really do a ton with it, is it's the fact that they only give them 8 minutes, so they have to kind of shotgun cleaning, getting them out of the way. All of a sudden, I was like, honestly, because you don't really do anything with how dirty you left it, you don't really do a ton with the family having to hide and stuff like that. It's like there's not a ton they really do with all of that. So I feel like, why not give them 15 minutes to where they actually can clean all of this stuff, or give them 20 minutes, even if you have to make it whatever it takes to make it a little more believable. Because it really bugged me that, the daughter, she basically sweeps all of this,
it's ridiculous.
All these crime and all this grime and glass and stuff under these very high rising furniture that would make it very easy to see all this stuff from a distance. So it makes it unnecessarily unbelievable that they would be able to hide this at all.
100%.
And I was like, okay, well, granted, I'm fine with that if you do something with it, but they don't really do anything with it. So I feel like give them enough time to sweep it up to make the cleanup more believable. And then you can progress. And granted, you could still make it to where maybe one or two of them have to hide. And because I know part of the point of having at least the father there while they're hiding is that, the husband has to smell him. And there's that kind of building tension that every time the husband hears the other guy bring up his smell, that it bothers him. That constant reminder of him being low class is consistently bothering him. It's part of what builds up to the ending. So I understand if you want to do something with that, but the rest of the cleanup, I feel like you just let them do that. Let them do that.
I'm always interested in not changing the script so radically. So I just think you give them a couple hours, they divide and conquer. They're leaning right back into their strengths again. The daughter is the great genius conspirator. She's the master grifter in all of this. So she's the one that's got them all calling the shots. You raced over here and you're going to tie up the maid and you're going to check on handicapping the guy downstairs, and we're going to do this kind of cleanup over here. We're going to do this. And then, it's raining outside, so no one wants to leave. It's like, okay, we're not going out in the rain. We're going to come up with solutions. And then somehow, because the dad is so difficult, he's the one that's stuck under the coffee table because he's a dope. He shouldn't have done it. He didn't listen to her advice. He doesn't whatever. They're trapped in the house. They can't get out of the house now because the son's out in the garden area where one of them was going to be. So everyone's trapped there. And the smell is still there for the dad. And it's smooth out the hijinks into getting to that darker and darker place. But I just couldn't do it, man. This is where they started to lose me a lot on what we're doing with the tone and the transitions of the movie. Because now the movie gets into a radically different feel. And I'm sure that they would thematically try to tout how the storm brought in a big change and a big shift. And it's supposed to be a metaphor for, okay, sure. And I get it. Like this is crazy. Like it's not just a storm. It's not like a rainstorm. It's a monsoon, man. It floods their little house area in absurd ways. Like there's literally like water shooting out of the toilet, which was a great effect. But it's like, holy cow. It's third world country, crazy, flooding type stuff. So It
I
is.
would be very curious to, how true to life actually is something like that. Uh, but also it's, I mean, I don't mind. I mean, honestly, once all of the hijinks from the previous scene kind of settles down, I'm more or less fine with most of what occurs after the fact. Uh,
Yeah, we should have a different movie,
as-
100%. Yeah, we should
but
have
it
a
is very,
completely
yeah, it
different.
is very
Yeah.
much a different movie that I felt like you almost, this is kind of why I want the kind of this second movie. I kind of wish it were a little bit longer because I do feel like there were things like, okay, they had the flood, so that means all of their clothes are probably pretty messed up. They had to get it from the gym where, you're kind of having to scrounge for it. And I'm like, I feel like you could do something with that. Like maybe now they all smell like the way the father smells now. And that's creating an issue. It's like there's little touches you could do with this that the movie doesn't really do all that much. So the flood scene, it's like, well, it's interesting in a way. It's nothing really happens from it beyond just the flood itself. Like they don't really do a ton with it. Beyond the fact that I guess you could argue that maybe that's part of what drives the father to do what he does. It's been really bad for him the last couple of days, and it's just he hits a breaking point. But they
Yeah,
don't
I
really
think.
do even a lot with him in this scene uh, to make you feel like that's anything like that's coming. Like
Well,
I think if you're showing him like consistently kind of going into this dark place, like gosh, now we've gone from this thing with in the rich person's home to now all my family, like everything's flooding, and now like if you show him just progressively going to a dark place in his mind, then what happens a few minutes from now? It's like, oh, okay, so this is what this has been building towards. It's just he's breaking.
yeah, we get this scene, right? So we get this scene where because of the flood and because of all of that, and the family has lost everything and they're living in like a shelter. And of course they smell her, and and she smells him in the car, like because
Mm-hmm.
obviously they're living in this gymnasium, they're living in a shelter, except for the mom. By the way, the mom's the housekeeper, so she doesn't have to be subject to all this. By the way, which is kind of a pet peeve of mine. Seems like that's not the plan the daughter would have. She's way too much of a schemer. I thought it this works fine for me. It transitions from the storm. It's just the fact that it's all happening really rapidly. So we go from they're there drinking, partying, doing their thing to discovering the maid to clean up in the storm to hide to our house is gone to this. Like it was so much happened so fast with conveniences, contrivances, and everything like that. Um, but I say that knowing that we're going to move quickly to, we're going to have a party and okay. I mean, that's fine. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah, I feel like almost like one of the things that hinders everything that happens from the hijinks on is just the fact that the movie seems intent on not giving it all a lot of time before it happens. Like,
Mhm.
and it's a very simple fix to work because they go from coming back from camping to we're going to throw a party for our son the next day, which I get why they're doing it because obviously the going camping was for him and they were doing it for his birthday. So they're like, okay, well we want to make up for that and throw a birthday party. I was like, well, do it in 2 days. That makes a little bit more sense than we're just going to do this the next day. And it's like, oh, okay. It's like, I don't see the necessity in that, but it kind of makes a lot of the other stuff feel a little bit too frantic,
Oh,
I
that would have
guess.
worked. That would have worked so much better because they could have called the art therapist in to
Mm-hmm.
counsel the son because, he's sad and she smells. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? And then Kevin smells when he arrives for the party. So I mean, you're setting up all the things that you need to set up to create the conflict and the contrast between storm versus now with just we can't do it tomorrow, we'll do it the next day. Gives him time to shop. He's driving around with her getting increasingly irritated with all of her because it's all frivolous, right? It's all frivolous that their lives are completely in shambles, and she's worried about who can come to their party and pulling off the specials for this kid, who's completely just being coddled into all these extreme like he's a genius kid who just does crazy art. So
So
yeah,
you
you're
did touch on
100% right.
something.
Couple
You
days,
touched on
yeah.
something kind of almost accidentally because, all right. So after watching the movie, I read the synopsis they had of this on Wikipedia and they got something wrong on it and it's funny because I was like, the Wikipedia thing is wrong, but if you combine what you just said with the way the Wikipedia article does the synopsis, I was like, that probably makes this scene slightly better. So the way the Wikipedia article puts it is that what drives the father to do what he does here coming up is a lack of compassion on the part of the rich man. That's what drives him. And I was like, that's not really what happens. It's when he
Right.
sees him react to the smell. If you have the daughter come in and people, I would have, like you brought up, like the idea of her having the smell on her. I think if you show her, like the rich husband noticing the smell on her, and the father here noticing that, and that bothering him, that now he's smelling it on my kids.
Yeah.
And I was like, if you have that, and then you show him reacting that same way to what they think is the homeless guy, and that driving him over the edge, I think that really strengthens that part,
Hmm.
because he makes that connection because of what happens to his daughter also. Uh, so it's almost like, yeah, almost accidentally we've stumbled on a way, I think, to make this just that little bit better, just that little bit better.
Right. Right. When they hand her the cake right before the attack, and the dad were to smell her and just
Mm-hmm.
didn't just flinch from it, then there's an attack. The dad is snapping over everything. He's just done. He's just broken. And if you factor in those couple triggers that were just handled a little bit differently, the jump doesn't seem as extreme. It feels like it just, yeah, okay. Yeah, he dudes, you can watch, you're watching him break a little bit. I don't feel like we had enough break. I don't, and
Mm-hmm.
again, this is what I think the whole film struggles from a little bit, is some of those, the pacing and the emotions. Because what we didn't get to, and we have to kind of plug in, is what happened with the son. Because the son goes back home. Of course, the house is lost. The guy lived in the shelter, and we didn't talk about it, but he was given this rock by the guy that helped him set up the job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this rock is this metaphor because it comes from the rich guy as a present, and he takes this rock and he's going to go back to the house and bludgeon this person in the basement, because he feels like that's what dad's going to do. That's what dad wants to. That's dad's quote plan. The dad has no plan, which we need to talk about that. So the son, I think his journey is so inconsistent, it doesn't make any sense. Like at first I thought he was a good-hearted character. Then he's like totally trying to be, he's scripting out stuff for the dad. I'm like, he doesn't feel like he looks up to his dad, so he's just a generic version of the sister. And then the rock thing, I just like,
Like
very inconsistent. I
I mean,
couldn't
I
get
get
it.
the point. I get what they're going for with the rock. Is I think the idea behind the rock is that, because there's, I think for a while he takes it as, we need this good fortune, and that,
Correct.
well, this will eventually make us rich, and then when he casts it
Right.
aside there at the end, it's like he realizes, I need to work for it, which I'm like, okay, that's a good message to have. I quite like that. I think it's I think I guess the mistake I would say this movie makes is that, from the outset, and for a good portion of like the first act and into the second act, it does feel like the son is the main character. It really doesn't feel like there is a main character after that. And granted, when we get to the end, it starts to focus a little bit more in on the son again, but I'm like, he really hasn't, like, you haven't spent a ton of time with him since then. It feels like once he settles into the role of being the tutor to the daughter of the rich family, his role kind of takes a backseat to everybody else, and to the point where we
Hmm.
barely spend time with him. Like, he doesn't really develop much after that. And granted, we get little scenes here and there, like after the whole flood scene, he has the conversation with his dad, and I'm like, kind of feel like he should have been having conversations with his dad and stuff. Like, it would almost make more sense to make the wife and the sister a little bit more secondary, and focus the movie more in on the dad and the son and their relationship, and kind of the difference between them. I feel like you could maybe make the class thing be a bit stronger if you're showing it through the eyes of an older person who's lived with it for the long time, and a younger person who has these dreams about getting out of it and stuff like that.
Okay.
I feel
Okay.
like you could probably do a little bit more thematically with that.
I think you could also just divide them both into two slots, like the mom and the daughter, and the son and the father. And the father is, he's been stuck this way his whole life. Like he gives that nihilistic speech, right? This whole,
Mhm.
no plan is the best plan, because if you have a plan it doesn't work out, then you're sad. It's like, just don't have a plan. And the son is like, I feel a yearning in my soul. That's not the right thing to do, dad. Like you can feel that, right? And then with the mom gets exempt from this storm fiasco because she's the maid, and the daughter is the master grifter. The fact that they would gravitate towards one another would make more sense and make it easier for the daughter to be like the mom wouldn't be able to hold this household thing down, like you said earlier. She didn't even have the skill. We don't have no idea why she's able to even cook and do. Isn't there a quick moment where isn't the daughter googling what's in the food or something so they know what to make? And it seems like the daughter should be the mastermind of the grifting. The mom is this tool, and you end up with the dichotomy between mother daughter, father son, and that would culminate a little smoother to allow us to get our foot in the door for the party with the cake, to allow the son to realize that he needs to be the one who takes the rock and go to the basement and bludgeon the people that are down there. I think it would just been a lot smoother process because we already shifted away from comedic elements and we're now really getting to the dark elements.
Yeah.
And then just so everybody knows, again, this is crazy. This is where the film was like, oh, holy crap, what is happening in this film? So yeah, the kid drops the rock, of course, and then there's a big thing about the rock and the maid. She's died from her concussions, and this guy attacks the son, and he races upstairs to count his revenge on this in the middle of this crazy birthday party. It is kind of nuts. I didn't even know exactly what to say to this. I was like, what is happening? They're dressed like Indians playing with the son's fantasies and shenanigans, and this dude walks in and just attacks. And I have to be honest, I had to rewind it for a minute, Gord. It was all so abrupt and intense. I had to watch it again. Like, hold on, wait a minute. It just felt so much. Yeah.
I mean, I don't like as far as like the guy who's been hiding in the bunker doing what he does. I'm more or less okay with it. Because given like who he specifically attacked. It's now granted, I would have thought that the movie probably could have highlighted better why he would pick the person he picked. Like, it almost plays into what you've been saying, that if you show that the girl is kind of the take charge person, if he had seen that, that would have probably better justified why he specifically went after her. Because granted, I think the idea is he's just going after whoever's closest from that family. But if he had a specific person in mind once he saw her, I think that probably would have been a bit stronger. But yeah, he goes out, he sees the daughter holding the cake, goes right after her and stabs her. And then the father reacts and, goes to take care of her. The son is obviously being terrified, is passed out, which, they built up that more or less fine. But
almost too extreme, actually. There's a little bit of a pool of blood. Like, oh crap, the dude that killed the son. Like, so I actually thought they should tame that bludgeoning down a little bit. So the son,
no, I wasn't even talking about that. But yeah, you are right.
Yeah.
I think the second hit with the rock actually throws it down onto his head. I was like,
way too much.
I was like, I have a hard time believing. It's like, granted, I know it's not impossible for him to survive, but holy cow, that second hit looks awful. I was like, there was enough blood as it was.
All right, but and then so weird guy from the basement attacks. He attacks the daughter. She gets stabbed with the cake, which is fine because he doesn't know who to attack, but he knows that she's there with the cake. She's center stage. I think they could have set this up better if they had her partnering with the mom. The mom was the gateway to the housekeeping thing, and the daughter should have been more of the mouthpiece calling the shots because she's been the great grifter all along. So therefore, she'd be the great target. And of course, that if the husband had stood next to her and smelled her smelling the same or had similar reactions, it makes it easier for us to understand that now the dad attacks the park patriarch and creates absolute chaos. I have to be honest, right before that happened, I actually thought that they were going to play up the whole thing on the former housekeeper and this homeless person. Like this homeless person broke in, or I thought there's going to be another out for this family get away with more stuff. To be honest, I really at this point, even that right before this even gets even darker, I actually thought this family is going to get away with this. That's literally what I'm thinking. Like I'm thinking, holy crap! Somehow this family, this daughter is going to walk away with this house. Which, by the way, there's a quick line that's never addressed, Gord, when she asked for the financials from the wife for credentials to be the tutor or whatever, the mentor, the art therapist. She asked for the title to the house, a copy of the title to the house. And I literally thought, she's going to steal this lady's house. They're going to steal this freaking house. It's literally what's in my brain when this right where this scene
Yeah,
is
you think
unpacking.
you think it's probably something beyond just trying to sound official.
Oh yeah. Oh
But
yeah.
it's the fact that they get specific with the documents
Yeah.
that makes you think there's probably something else to it. But yeah, they don't do anything with it. But I was
No,
like,
nothing
okay.
happens with that.
I mean, it's not necessarily
Not
a
huge.
flaw. It's more
Yeah.
of a tease, like a red herring. But
And maybe
yeah,
that's more for us Americans because it's a bigger issue here maybe than it would be for
yeah.
them. Maybe.
But yeah, I think in this scene, because like I said, the way Wikipedia kind of frames it is, the father is attending to his daughter because she's the one who just got stabbed, whereas the rich father, they say, attending to his son. The way it seems like they wrote it is that the father is saying, "Hey, I need you to help me get my son to the hospital," and you would understand in his position, he's like, I can't reveal that this is my daughter, but it's infuriating him that he's like, this girl's been stabbed. It's like she's got the more immediate thing. Now, granted, he doesn't maybe realize there's the whole 15-minute thing with the younger son that the wife has brought up and whatnot. So there's just all this chaos to this scene. But again, it's like, I feel like if you're wanting to justify what he does, which ultimately he stabs the rich father, it's like, because what he does is he lifts up the back of the guy who's been in the bunker and he smells him and it's just like, oh, that's horrible, and it sets off our
Right.
main father here because he's dealt with that the whole movie and he's finally just had enough of having to see that. And I'm like, if he had done the same with his daughter right before then, I think that him going off on him is just that little bit more understandable. Because granted, it is an impulsive thing that he does, but you still have to justify the impulse because otherwise, like they've gotten along with this family just fine. I mean, they're a little wary of him because there's the whole line where the mother says, when you're this rich, you can afford to be nice. So there is that detachment. But at the same time, it's like they all have gotten along fine since then. There's even the line later in the movie where the father's kind of looking at the picture of the rich guy and he's apologizing, like, I'm sorry. So there's not necessarily like ill will that's built up this whole time. It's just, it frustrates him having to get this constant reminder that they're lower class. And I'm like, if you had done that with the daughter right before this, I think it justifies the impulse just that little bit more.
Yeah, and I think that it didn't need to be as impulsive. I think it could have there could have been a line or something about we're taking the daughter to, or we're doing something to make this
Yeah.
feel like your priorities is only on your son. This woman's been stabbed. Like if you let's just objectively say everything is true from the eyes of the park dad.
Granted,
He's got to get his son to the hospital.
yeah.
But his chauffeur is like, wait, we got to take the art therapist to the hospital too. She just freaking got stabbed. We got to take everybody to the hospital. Aren't you helping me?
Now, the funny thing about
leave
this
her,
is
leave her
I
and take
can,
my son would have been like the best trigger then, because then it's like, oh, you're
yeah.
not talking about the art therapist, you're talking about my daughter.
Like, and the funny thing is, though, I kind of get why the director didn't want to do that and this is kind of why I think like this whole thing about the movie leaning one way class wise very prominently, I think is wrong, because if you have the rich father saying, forget her, we need to get to my son, that makes him look awful. It's like, holy crap, this girl just got stabbed. What are you talking about? But so I get that you're trying to make this scene play out a very specific way. It's just okay, but that's why you have to kind of justify the impulse, I find. And it's like I get that. I think he's very much trying not to vilify the rich father too much. So again, I feel like that goes against the narrative I was hearing about this movie going. So in that respect, I appreciate it. But at the same time, like, okay, but from there, you got to make this impulse work. And I just think that little extra detail of it, maybe him making a connection between him smelling the guy who's been stuck and him doing the same with his daughter would have worked better.
Yeah.
Because really all that sets him off is he sees him smell the guy who's been in the bunker, and that kind of pisses him off. And it's like, I mean, I feel like this works better the other way.
Yeah, I think culturally this probably plays better than it did for me. Maybe the Koreans and third world countries and the smell and the subway smell and then again, what happens after this, folks? With the son wakes up, he somehow survived surgery. They're in court. They just get probation. Like I don't understand how they're not accomplices in murder. By the way, just so the mother in particular actually technically is the murderer of the previous housekeeper based on the throwdown the stairs, but that's
Well,
notwithstanding the details
they
in
don't know
court.
about her. They don't know about her. That's
Yeah, they
why.
don't know about the details, right? So,
Yeah, they
um,
actually at this point, like the authorities have no idea the other housekeeper is in that bunker. He
right, because
buries
he
her.
buries her in the
So
backyard and just lives out in this thing, and the son's like, "I'll work and I'll make money and I'll buy that house so you can be free, Dad," kind of fantasy stuff. I don't know. I was really let down, man. I enjoyed so much of this movie, and especially in that first act and the dark comedic elements of this grifting concept and how a grifting concept like this could go sideways. And I think they really stumbled over their own feet trying to make some sort of weird class social commentary when in fact they could have just done that as sort of secondary to the fact that they were already being grifted by this other housekeeper keeping a husband in the basement trying to dodge loan sharks, and then it could have just been more like hijinks and ensue with murder. Then that husband gets out and then attacks so and so, and I don't know. It just seemed like it was so easy to create. Uh,
yeah, it almost feels like if they had
yeah.
been less intent on such a violent ending, it probably would have
Mm-hmm.
been smoother. Like, okay, if the one guy breaks out and does what he does, that's one thing. It's getting to the point where the father does it too. I'm like, it's the rest of your movie, is kind of hindered by that in a way because it's like you have to justify so much while at the same time not trying to overfilify the rich couple, and it's a little too chaotic. And here's the thing, it's kind of abrupt after that because that's the last we see of anyone in the rich family at all. We don't really see the
It's just
fallout,
done.
how it
It's
affects
over.
them. It's just
Yeah.
they're kind of out of the movie at this point. So
And you could
uh
have just like you either if the son either should have just died in the basement and the daughter survives her wounds, and I would have had a better final act ending if she actually owns the house now because of that title thing. I know that's a crazy little thing. It would have just been easier for me to tolerate the twists and the turns and the nonsense with the probation or whatever. Because technically,
the
the
probation thing,
mom,
I wonder if that fits, like, because I'm curious country to country if it's just the laws make it more favorable for them. Because, like, I know, like okay, something like this were to go down somewhere like, say, Texas. We know this is not how the movie
oh
would
no,
end
no,
because it's
everybody
like,
gets a
okay, if this
chair.
happens in Texas,
Yeah.
accomplices, if there's murder involved, accomplices are responsible too. Maybe it's different in South Korea, so
But
maybe
could
it's
you
just a cultural
imagine
barrier. But
how little we'd have to change though? Like, so we would make the changes that we made, and it goes pretty much, but we say the daughter survives her wounds. She's the one that wakes up in the hospital. She survived. And that, the mother goes to probation, but then the daughter is not really tied to anything because she's done so good at forging all these documents and covering her tracks because she's the master grifter, right? And
mhm.
she actually owns the freaking house now. I mean, it would be a way to have the class stuff out of it all. I don't know what we do with the dad though. Is the problem because he actually did murder somebody in front of everybody. But um, it's listen. I didn't hate this movie. I don't know that I'd watch it again. I feel like it's extremely overrated and overhyped, and it's particularly because it's a couple of movies kind of thrown together, and it feels like I'm watching different things that don't flow evenly enough for me. And that's
Mhm.
like, and this could just be me. I definitely am totally cool with people thinking this is a 9. I just cannot get there at all on that level of love for this film. So yeah.
I would say this. I think this is why I like discussions like this. It's illuminating in a lot of ways because rewatching this the second time, I was mostly and I still would say I do like the movie. I think it's good. Um, I had initially, upon rewatch, rated this something like a little like an 8, 8.25, something like that. Going over the plot and particularly the issues after the night that they're kind of indulging has been much more illuminating this time. So I'm like, it has bumped my score down to where I still like the movie. I had a good time rewatching it. I mean, I own the movie, so it's like, yeah, I'd rewatch it again. But I have always felt like um, while I get why it was nominated for Best Picture, there's even a part of me that appreciates that fact because I like when foreign films get recognition in Best Picture categories. There were two movies in particular that came out that year that it has bugged me to no end that this beat. I think because this came out the same year as Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and Ford v Ferrari. I think those are significantly better films. Like I don't really think this one is even close to either. So I've always thought it should have been one of those two that actually won. But I mean, I like this
And
movie, but
I
yeah,
gotta
I think
be
my score bumped down to about a 7.
I'm kind of with you on the 7. I can, as a critic, I would probably put this at about a 7. My rewatchability though is very, very low on this. I
Yeah,
think that I
I
would
don't think
enjoy
it's
the first part of the movie. The other thing too, though, I think more criminal than just Best Picture. This had some like production design stuff and whatever, and I get like, so
got
I
nominated
hit
for
the wrong.
that.
I hit
It
the
got
wrong button on like. Okay,
uh
I get the film school stuff, guys. I get it. There's literally a crossing the line thing here on the right side of the screen when the person's going to cross the line now. There's little, stuff like that the film does well. There are some really pretty shots as well that I think, warrant some recognition, but it's highly overrated for what they're like. This is crazy. Like,
Oh, it was
it's
also
like two sets. Yeah.
1917 came out that year too.
Yeah. This
1917 is a
is,
better movie. Heck, I
yeah,
think
way
I think
better.
I'll be honest, I think Joker's a better movie. I I think Joker
Uh,
holds up pretty well on rewatch.
I haven't
Uh
rewatched it. I don't know that I
and
can.
now granted, I think Joker, similar to this, doesn't have as much rewatch value for a lot of people because it is so depressing and dour. This one, its rewatch value is kind of like I said, I haven't rewatched this in probably 5 years. I think every 5 years is probably about as rewatchable as I consider this. But this was up against much better movies, and
Yeah,
I
Ford
don't
versus
think it should have.
Ferrari, Joker, 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
I would give it. This is definitely better than The Irishman. I
I
haven't
can't
seen
watch
Marriage.
Irishman again. Irishman is way too long. I'll never sit through that again. I'm
Yeah,
just not
yeah,
doing
like
that. It's
Irishman was
way.
just like it was fine. I didn't love it. It was like it's fine.
I have a video coming out on our Friday's podcast soon that if you haven't seen it, folks, it's about The Departed. And I know a lot of people love The Departed. I think Irishman is even a worse case of, is there anyone in the room that just would not tell Scorsese no? It's just a director just completely indulging everything he has and just keeps going and going and going.
Honestly,
Um,
production design, this getting nominated doesn't bug me too much because for one thing, it didn't win. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood did win that, so I'm fine.
yeah, but
Uh,
there's
it's
two
this.
sets. There's like a
It's
couple of shots
honestly
that are cool. Like
well, it's. I think they're giving it credit for the set design and
I don't
like there's
care.
the
It's way too
apartment and stuff.
much.
I think that's what they're going for, but I definitely think. I mean, granted, like I said, the right movie won that, so I'm fine with it. But I'll tell you, the one that actually bugs me a little more is original screenplay. I was like, I do think this has a solid screenplay, but compared to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood or Ford v Ferrari, nah, nah. Ford v
I didn't
Ferrari
even
wasn't
know.
even
I didn't
nominated.
even know Ford v Ferrari was an original screenplay. I figured it was adapted. So
Maybe I
that's an
mean
original. Okay.
it's actually Ford v Ferrari wasn't nominated for either, so maybe it's not original. But I've heard Marriage Story has an excellent screenplay. 1917 screenplay. I'm surprised that was nominated. Knives Out was nominated, and that movie's terrible. But Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I'm like, that's easily the best screenplay out of that group. It's not close. It's not close.
Um. Look, I love that movie. Probably more than most people should love that movie. However, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I can't see this film winning the awards. Overhyped, way overrated. I can give it a 7 as a critic and acknowledge that. Ugh, I don't know that I can rewatch it again. And
I've seen better Korean films. I'll put it that way. I have
oh
definitely
my
seen
goodness
better
gracious
Korean
me,
films.
yes. Oh my goodness gracious me, yes. And Snowpiercer is a better movie. It's a way better movie in a lot of ways. Like it's got a
Yeah, I'd
lot of
agree.
interesting social commentary. It's got a very interesting. It's way more
Really well
rewatchable.
designed. Better, I would
Beautiful,
say the production
beautiful
design
set.
for that is
Yeah,
better.
way
Really good
better.
production design for that movie.
100%. Yeah. So, I mean, and again, I'm not familiar with, like you said, The Host, and the other is Murder. What's it called? Murder?
Memories of Murder.
Memories of Murder. We're supposed to be better than this one.
Mhm.
Yeah, I haven't seen either of those to know for sure. So I would be hard pressed to judge, but I was very unimpressed with the Parasite. And the sad thing is, it's so good in so many ways. It just couldn't get out of its way to try to push some commentary when it didn't have to. The commentary was going to be there, and they could have just stuck with the one feel and lean more into dark comedy and less about this crazy edgy twist. And it just didn't need to go that far. It just easily could have been just adjusted here. We didn't make that many adjustments to their script to make a better movie, to be honest. I don't think we changed too many too many shifts and turns to what he had to make a better film. So that's my general take. Yeah,
I agree.
So, all right, it was a good one though. It's a good pick, Gord. I'm glad we got that off the bucket list. And
Yeah.
I can say, oh, I watched it with Gord. I'm not going to watch that again. People will bring it up. I'm like, sorry, I've already done that one. It's, but not the worst movie. And again, it's a film critic, a 7. It's me, the man, the person, probably like a 5. I'm not watching it again. Like I can't stand that it derails such an opportunity. It makes me mad when movies do something so good and then it derails its own thing, and just like I don't want to watch it. I think about the negative too much, and maybe
You almost you start to imagine the better movie it could have been.
yes,
It's like
100%. Yeah, 100%. I wish it's like one of those things that, especially when I watch movies that are overtly too long. Like we went through this in 23, I believe, where even good movies were just too long. They could have been great movies. Like people love Guardians 3. And I'm like, God, this
they
movie
shouldn't.
it's got at least 30 minutes that we don't even need. There's
Guardians,
some good.
I hate to tell people this, Guardians 3 does not hold up on rewatch at all. Not
Oh,
even just the
yeah.
length. That Guardians 3 is a bad movie. I'm sorry. It's a bad movie.
I don't hate it as much as Gord does. I could
I
fix
don't even
that
hate
movie.
it. It's not even a hate thing.
I can fix it.
It's
There's enough.
objectively a badly written script. I hate
There's
to
a
say
lot
it.
of stuff in there we can fix, though. So that's a problem. We can fix the stuff. It's just the problem is, so when I watch it again, I can't watch it again now because I'm mad. Because I'm mad at the fact that we had an opportunity here to make a good film, and you made a mess. You made an absolute mess. So, well, folks, hopefully you've enjoyed our first time watch with Gord. I'll be back next time with Baron Orman Tag. We'll be doing Android, which is a uber cultish 1980s sci-fi movie that's free on YouTube, by the way. So we'll be doing that one next time. Neither one of us had seen Android. And then Gord will be back with me. We're going to do Serpico. So Serpico is a film I hadn't seen, or if I had seen, didn't remember much, did a video on it, and I'll give it a go. Interesting to see what Gord will have to say about a film that's that renowned, that early in the Pacino era, snug in between the Godfather successes. We'll see. Love to hear his
I'm
angle
looking
on
forward
that.
to it.
Yeah. Well, folks, check out the description there. Gord's, he's always streaming. He's got some gaming stuff. Got some stuff to do. Go into the Gord archives to see some of the great analysis and stuff that he does. He's always editing and tweaking some content. So make sure you are connected to the Gourd King as well.
Got something coming out pretty soon, in fact.
Sounds great. I'm looking forward to it, of course. And interested in having you back, doing this more often, folks. Make sure you're liked and subscribe with all the stuff so you know when we're doing them. And be blessed. Talk hard. Till next time. I am Pops.